Hello, everybody, and welcome to Women of Dance. I'm your host, Sharonne Vinokurov, and I'm so excited to have a wonderful guest today on our show. But before I bring her on, just wanted to touch base with you guys and thank you all for tuning in all this time. It has been so wonderful doing this show, being able to speak with all of these incredible, inspiring women and to be able to share their talents with you has been nothing short of a blessing. There's a lot of fun stuff coming up. I really can't wait to show you what we have going on. Normally, I don't give you the names, and I think I'm not going to, but I'll make an announcement of maybe one or two that I have coming up next month. But today's talent is one of my favorites. I love her so much. She is what I consider a superwoman in this business. I mean, we're talking performer, choreographer, teacher, coach, director, wife, mother of three. I mean, superwoman. So without further ado, I'm about to bring on my wonderful guest today, the fabulous Julissa Cruz.
Hi.
Hi, girl.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
You look fabulous. I look like, it's been a rough day already.
It's okay. That's life, right?
Yes.
It's that mom life.
It's always real.
It's always real. But I feel like it's just in par for how like the years have been going. You know what I mean?
Oh, for sure. For sure.
Nothing can go smooth.
Yeah. Never.
Never. Well, I know you're super busy. I know you have so much always on your plate. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today.
Yes, yes.
I'm so excited to have you on. You were probably one of the women that I initially thought of when I thought of the show, in the sense of like, who are some of the baddest women in the business? And you immediately came to mind. And the funny thing is like, I've mentioned you to my parents so many times.
Really?
Yeah, because, well, first of all, I had the honor of sharing a stage with you twice. Yeah. So that was just amazing. But also, when I talked to my parents about going into this business full time, their biggest concern for me was, but you can't be a mom and do this. You can't be a wife. Like, this isn't that type of business. And I literally go, my friend Julissa is married with 3 kids, and she can do it. I can do it.
Oh, man.
So when I told her that I was having you on, she was like, oh, this is the one you keep telling me about. Okay, cool.
Let me tune in to make sure.
Yeah, she tries to tune in when she can. Thankfully, the show obviously stays up afterwards, so
yeah,
you can watch them after. But yeah, she's definitely my biggest critic for sure. So let's just start with you. Let's start with your background, right? Tell me and tell everybody how your dance life began. So
Ooh.
give us the lowdown on Julissa.
I came out Susie Qin from the womb. No, I mean, like most Latinos, we always had music playing at home when it came to like our cultural dances. We always had that playing. I didn't go into studio classes until I was about 10 years old. So then I started taking jazz, which is like my first love, jazz, tap, ballet, and it just kept going. From the age of 10, I just became a studio kid. And so Latin dances were really only done at like quinceañeras and like my family gatherings, or like in the kitchen making dinner.
I love it.
That's when all that took place. So I didn't really get into like the formalized partner dancing, counting it and sticking the arm up on one or whatever we did until probably when I was like 18, 19, when I was old enough to like go out to the club, to the Latin clubs. And I'm watching everybody. I'm like, oh, like these people are serious. Okay. I mean, I could hang, because I could follow, right? Because at that point, I didn't know too much. So I was a good follower because I was like, lead me. Once I started learning, I was like, hold up now. That's not like you're supposed to lead me.
Wait a minute, that don't feel right. Hold up a second.
Right. But in the beginning, it was super, fun and easy. And it felt, like second nature because I grew up just hearing the music all the time and dancing it all the time informally. So I didn't really get into like salsa, like counting on a team until I was like 18, 19.
Wow.
And that was in Florida, in South Heat. I actually, I got into it because I met my first dance partner, Andres Echevarria,
Okay.
around that time. And it was at a club. And he was like, you should do this team. And I'm like, whatever, okay. So yeah, I got into it, and it was like, I started, and it was like 2 months later, we had a competition. I was like, what in the world?
Oh my God.
Thankfully, because I come from a studio background, we're doing choreos, and we have yearly recitals and different things. So it was just like, okay, you're going to learn this choreo. So I was like, okay, I don't need to know how to dance yet. I just need to know how to execute this routine.
Yep.
So it was easy in that sense. But then it came to like social dancing at the same event, and I was like, I'm going to sit right here in the corner and just watch.
When did you start to feel comfortable with the social dancing aspect of it at that point?
It took time. It definitely took time. Like that first year of just performing and doing choreos and kind of like really learning the, what's the word I'm looking for? Like the community that I was getting into, because it's a really different mindset than just growing up in a studio, right?
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't grow up in a competitive studio. Like it wasn't a competitive studio. It was just
like,
we do our recitals, we perform for our peeps, we compete with each other, like in class. Like it wasn't like a competitive studio. So it was very family oriented, community building. And the scenery was completely different when you entered the salsa world, because it was just more grander, so many more different facets of it. So it took me about a year to really feel comfortable with just going out social dancing, which is interesting because when I got 18 and I went social dancing and I didn't know, I was like, yes, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, whatever you counting on, let's go, you know? But then when I started learning and saying, oh, wait, he wants me to go like this, you know, like when you watch and you saying, okay, your arm has to go up on this count, when you're learning those type of things, you're like, oh, you're like hesitant. You're like, I'm gonna sit back. So it took me out of the game a little bit for a good year until I felt comfortable with being like, whatever, let's just do it. Let's see what comes out. Absolutely. So yeah, it took me some time because I was good. And then I saw, you know, my eyes open, I put on my glasses and I was like, oh wait, maybe I'm not so cute right now. Like, what was I doing before?
It's like, what exactly did I look like when I started doing it?
Right? You don't really realize it until you do.
I want to go back a little bit because you said jazz is your first love.
Yeah.
And I love that because I see so much of that in your dancing.
Oh, yeah.
Right. I've talked with other guests about, you know, the importance of technique versus flavor. Right. That natural, you know.
For sure.
Thing that like I personally don't have because I'm a white girl. So, you know what I mean? But like I have the technical, so I have to train for the other side. But you, because you have the studio training, but you grew up in a household where this was just part of your life, the music, all of that. Do you find that one benefits you more than the other?
I think they both complement each other really, really well.
Okay.
But I will say that my technique or my background in studio has helped me see things visually different when it comes to salsa, when it comes to Latin dance forms. And because I like jazz, you know, and maybe it would be different if like my first love was ballet, right? Because then I'd see the technical of everything. But jazz has technique, but then it has all this free movement. Like here's the circle, and these are the colors that you're using in jazz. And yes, you outline the circle, you make sure you see your technique, and then it's like wham, draw a star out the lines, and then you come back into the circle. And I feel like a lot of Latin dance forms are the same thing. While there is still a lot of technique behind it, there is still so much room to just color outside the lines, right?
Yeah.
And still have a little bit of both. So I think that's where they're similar. Okay. And that's why I liked jazz when I went into it, because people that grow up in a studio and you say you started at 10, they're like, oh my God, that's so old. You should have started at 3, you know, like
I started at 2.
Yeah. A lot of people start like when they're barely using vocabulary words, you know, And so to say that I started at 10 feels so late in that world, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think that was helpful because I used to, watch music videos when like people actually watched music videos on TV.
Right. Remember those days? Those were great.
And I feel like I learned a lot of that and from my home, so that when I added the technique, it just enhanced what I was already feeling and brewing up inside. But I do think that technique can be easily learned over time.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy for everyone to acquire it, but it is something that you can attain and achieve if you put hard work and you study correctly and you are consistent with learning technique.
Mm-hmm.
But to have the other portion of it is not easily taught, right? Is to have the kind of grittiness that you need to really dance from a place that's not just this is this song, but like you hear a song and you're like, this is what it makes me feel like, right? To dance with a different feeling, to dance with a joy that is not easily defined. It takes a different, you can't teach really that, like now there are some people that learn so much technique and had so many classes that there's an aha moment and they're like, ooh, I really feel like there's something internal that happens. And but
I love those moments.
That takes much longer than just learning your technical portion of it. There's a freedom in that, and that freedom takes a little longer. So I feel like I had that freedom first.
Okay.
When I was younger. And I think when you start young, you have that freedom, right? You don't have like inhibitions. You don't have any,
self-doubt.
There's no insecurities yet,
Exactly.
Like, then again, nowadays, kids, even younger because of social media and the world, insecurities earlier. But back then, I wasn't worried about what, I'm still not worried about what I would be wearing, but you don't have these internal conversations about insecurities on whether or not, things look right. You just know that they feel right.
Yeah.
So I feel like I had that first. Like I was like, oh, that's all I have to do. Let me do a jump split. And I'm not even behind it. I'm just going to turn and jump and I'm here, like
I love that.
Thinking about, but now as an adult and as you grow, now you have all these like inner dialogues and inner, like your worst critics are yourself. You're like, am I this? Am I that? Am I that? So I think it was easier to have the freedom first.
Okay. Did you have a woman that inspired you in your early dance stages?
Hold on, don't go away. I clicked something because I'm like not so computer savvy here. Okay, here we go. So in Latin, you mean?
No, in the beginning of your dance stages, like when you were in the studio, like was there a female artist or somebody that inspired you? And then I do want to know on the Latin dance side as well. But
okay, so in the studio side, again, I grew up in a studio, and my director in that studio, Lisa Dronick, shout out to Legs, my favorite people in the world. They've been open now 20 years, maybe 30. But they really made me very eclectic with my music because she's like super into like the most random songs, like Devil Went Down to Georgia or like, White Wedding. Like, so
my God, that's so random. I love it.
I was exposed to so many different genres of music, which I can seriously appreciate. And I had to dance with the same feeling and like devote, Black Magic Woman. It went from Black Magic Woman to White Wedding to, to Purple People Eater. And so all these different genres of music.
You said Purple People Eater. I just died.
But, it's so eclectic with your music sense. So I think the people in my studio, the women in my studio, especially my teachers, my teachers, Lisa Dronick, who was my first, we did ballet and jazz together and tap. And then Jen Gotowski, who taught me tap, which I love. She has such a magnificent ear for rhythm and timing, which is like, now I'm like, you're not on time. And I think it's because of her. And then Leslie Wheeler, who was my ballet teacher and my jazz teacher. I had so many influences, and they were all, older women and very eclectic with their music selections and their backgrounds and what they saw in music. And, we used to watch a lot of like Bob Fosse, and we always had like a theme. So I feel like growing up, I had those influences and watching a lot of musicals and things like that. So I always liked the different pictures that all these experiences gave me, you know, like watching a musical versus learning a routine and then getting into teaching. So I definitely think the people or the women that were my teachers growing up, as well as just my peers, you know, the girls that were in my class with me that pushed me, you know, like there was a girl who was just great at everything. And I was like, how do you have this energy?
Yep.
And so I was just like, I don't have half the things you have, but I'm gonna be right here trying to leap with you, you know, like, so it's just, there's a lot of encouragement and a lot of inspiration if you're open to receive it, right? Like there could be inspiration everywhere. It doesn't have to be like, I love everything about this person, but there's little nuggets of inspiration in every person that you meet. And I think that whole experience and growing up in the studio really just had a multitude of inspiration on me and my path moving forward for sure.
Okay.
And the Latin thing, funny enough, I didn't really have any female teachers. Like when I first started, I had one female teacher who was my director when I first started with Salsa Heat. That's Doris Caban. And I'll never forget the first time I met her. She was like, you know, you need these heels. And I had never danced in Latin heels. And they were $115. And girl, I was putting myself through school. I was like, good Lord, $115. I was like, and you need 2 pairs. And I was like, oh my Jesus, I'm gonna pick up an extra job. But then I had like a 3-hour private with her. And that was my entrance. Okay, this is your 3-hour private, and then you're gonna learn this routine, and then I'm not, you know, you're done, you're good. And literally for 3 hours, all we did was like Pumbaa walks across the floor, back and forth and back, just to get acclimated in heels and to get the weight shifting properly and to get my lines forming from like, for 3 hours, Sharonne. I was like,
but that's kind of genius when you think about it.
Super genius. But then I was like, good Lord, like, you know,
you probably couldn't walk for like 2 days afterwards.
You know, like you think about it, you're like, good Lord, it's 3 hours of walking. What did I learn? But magnitude of information just from learning how to walk. You can learn your presence. You can learn your weight transfer. You can learn how to separate your chest from your hips, right? That elasticity in your midriff. You can learn posture. You think about your opposition as you're moving from like mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. And people are like, but you just walked. No, you don't understand.
No. It was a life-changing 3 hours of walking.
Worth every penny, right? And I was able, and that allowed me to be able to learn these choreographies quicker in heels. While I could learn the choreography and do it in a pair of jazz shoes,
for
you were performing in jazz shoes.
Nope.
So it allowed me just to like be that much quicker, just knowing where my weight transfer was happening. But other than her, I never really had a female teacher. I had my dance partner, Andres Echavarria. I had my other dance partner, Benjamin Medina. Every dance partner that I've had was my inspiration, right? Or like the person who, okay, I move like this and they move like this, and I'm gonna try to mesh that. So I always took from my partners, but my partners wasn't ever really a female until now that I dance with Melanie Castillo. But or like when I dance with Liz, you know, like, but I've never had a teacher female lead, like never. And I remember one time I did a show with Troy, like it was like I had to learn the routine that morning to perform that night. And he was looking at me and he's like, you've never had a female teacher, have you? And he was like, and I was like, no, I haven't. He was like, yeah, because like your hand, and now I'm like obsessed with like hands and the structure of feminine. And I'm in essence, I'm very androgynous, period, right? Like I have some feminine and I have some masculine. And so I learned to really dig into my feminine side now more. It took me a while because again, I didn't have any female teachers saying, you know, pick the tissue out of the tissue box and, you know, like pick all those little things.
I haven't heard that one before.
Really? I always do that one. This was a Doris Caban. She used to say, extend your fingers and pick the tissue out of the tissue box, and that's your finger egg.
I love that. Oh
and
my
that
God.
motion, you know, it took me a while.
That's genius. I just remember being told to pretend to hold an egg.
Oh, I used to hate that though, like the
I
egg.
hate it. But that's what they told you in the beginning. Like,
It was.
and
It
if you're
was.
holding an egg, and I'm like, holding an egg. I'm like, don't my ballet hands look nice enough as it is? What what the hell? Why do I
Yeah,
need to hold an egg? But it was that extra, whatever. But I really like the tissue one. I think I might have to take that.
fancy tissue, like a handkerchief with some
Fancy
embroidery.
tissue.
Yeah.
Definitely embracing that for sure. All right. So you entered the salsa world. You started with Salsa Heat in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
Talk to me about what came next on this journey of yours.
Ooh, I was in Salsa Heat for a while. So, like I said, I started with Salsa Heat. I did about a year.
Okay.
I mean, I did longer than that, but I did about a year under the direction of them. And then the second year, I became the director of the company. So then
that's fast.
Yeah, it was quick. Well, some stuff happened there, and they were like, "Come on, Julissa." I was like, "All right." And I was the youngest one on the team at that time. I was like 20 years old. So I was the youngest one. Everybody else on the team was much older, except for Ben. Ben is like my age, but everybody else was older, like much older. So there was some growing pains, right? Because I grew up in a studio where I was young, and my teachers are older, and now I'm not teaching these people because they know, but I have to like corral these people into working as a unit. So the experience of leadership was like, okay, I got to do this, and I got to do that, and I got to, it was such a learning experience for me in leadership because you're always brought up, you got to respect your elders, but you're like, but I'm in charge of my elders.
Yeah, right. It's weird.
And I have to have them do this correctly. So it's just like, so it's such a pull, like back and forth. So I was there with them for a good couple years. And then from Salsa Heat, I actually, I went away for about a year because I had to help some family in New York. But then when I came back, and I have my husband who I was engaged, who actually I met at the same time I started salsa. It was like I met him, we got our first date going on, and then I was like, yo, I have this thing at this studio that I'm like supposed to audition. He was like, all right, I'll drive you. And then next thing you know, I'm like, I'm on a team. And he was like, okay, girl, I just met you. But all right.
I love it.
Yeah, so then me and my husband to be, we actually moved to Virginia. He got his first facility was in Richmond, Virginia.
Okay.
And when I told people I was going to Richmond, they were like, where's that? We don't even know what that is. And I'm like, it's kind of the capital of Virginia.
Shout out to the American education system.
Yes, right. So we moved to VA, and that's actually, I was there maybe like 4 or 5 months. And I was like, I need to do something. So that's when I actually started Latin Vintage. I taught some classes, and then I saw the need for something a little more community oriented and structural, like what I had grown up. And so I decided to open up Latin Vintage there in 2009 in Richmond. And say that again?
Sorry for interrupting. Do you think that because you had, growing up in the studio, you had a female like leadership there, do you think that helped you and take over, like do that with Latin Vintage? Did it give you the confidence or anything as a woman trying to do this?
Oh, for sure. I think it's always important to have strong female figures growing up, and for them to be successful in whatever they endeavor to do, and for you to see that and to witness that. Studio work or running a studio is by no means, glamorous or like some, you're not going to be able to buy a $1 million home or anything like that. Nope. But what I will take away from watching my teachers, and then also going back as an adult and still witnessing them, is that there was never a time where I saw them unfulfilled with what they were doing. Were the children frustrating from time to time? Sure. Did they want to see a couple of them? I'm almost certain. Right? Were they severely annoyed? Were there times of frustration creatively because of who you have to teach? Sure. But I never really experienced them being unfulfilled, right? And they always felt very satisfied with their choice of career and what they chose to do. So I think that took away a little bit of the fear of starting Latin Vintage. Because Latin vintage was always going to be a labor of love, first and foremost.
Yeah.
If I could make a living off that, great. If I couldn't, I still was gonna do it because like I find fulfillment in creative movement, just moving my body and creatively listening to music and finding ways to tell a story without words, you know? So I just think it was going to happen regardless, but I do think that them showcasing me that they were still satisfied with their decision was what took away that fear for me, for sure.
Gotcha. We're gonna start showing some of your videos.
Okay.
Taking a look at your career. I got a lot of stuff of you with the incredible Gordon. So this, I think, was the earliest performance I found of you guys.
Yeah.
And I believe it's like 2008.
Yes, because we started partnering in 2007. Yeah, like the end of 2007 or mid 2007. He called me and was like, yo, I need a partner. I was like, hi, nice to meet you. But
wait, you didn't know him before he called you and asked you to partner up?
Funny story is that we went and performed at Flavor Invasion in 2007, which was like in the spring. And my partner at the time, Andres Echevarria, was like, got the gig for us. He was like, let's go. We're going to drive to Atlanta. We want to do this event, blah, blah, blah. And we were only there for one night because we had another gig in Florida. So we performed for Gordon's event, which I didn't even know who the organizer was. I just came to 567 and was like, we got to go because we got stuff to do tomorrow. And he saw the show, you know, and he saw another, like a duet of me. And he was like, yo, so I don't know. I guess Andres gave him my number and he needed a partner. He was in need of a partner. So I was like, okay, let's go. Let's do it. You know, you're not that far away. I'll just drive up and, you know. So this was technically our third piece. I learned one that he already had with the previous partner, which was Trina, his ex-wife. I learned that one. But we never, actually, did we perform? We performed that one once. But then we learned another one that was like completely the opposite. It was like super mambo. It's called Clásico.
I have that in this playlist. It might just be a later performance.
So Clásico and this one was actually the same year, and they were like polar opposites. And we did this one because he realized, oh, wait, you have a hip hop background. And I'm like, oh, yeah. And he was like, me too. I'm like, let's roll it.
I mean, you are wearing sneakers.
Yeah.
All those hours of talking about training in your heels, but here you are on stage in sneakers.
Girl, I was so happy though. I was like, woo, I'm gonna hit this 567 with my flats. But this was the most, you know, if you look up all our pieces, Gordon and I, we never have a piece that's like 2 minutes. Never. It's always like 4 minutes and up. So this was they were all very long pieces, like strenuous in the cardio category. But yeah, this is one of our favorite ones to perform that we performed. And actually, it was one of the most popular ones in general. Really? You know, people always wanted the jump off because it was so different. You know, it was so like, and because we come from a hip hop background, so it felt more authentic than when people put hip hop in like their intro. And it's like, oh, I saw this crumping video. Let me crump when they're not crumpers, you know? So for us,
you were twerking back then.
I know, right? It was like the thing to do. You put all these intros that you're actually you don't have a background in because it's like cool. But so it felt really authentic for us to do the jump off. So I think that's why it was a little more popular because it felt and looked authentic to do it.
Oop. Let me get out of that. Somehow that just popped up there. That's not you.
These ads.
Gotta love these ads. They're so annoying. I thought I had to turn it off, but for whatever reason, they just want to play. Meanwhile, your next video, which is Classico, for whatever reason, I wanted to show the contrast, and I love that you talked about it because
it's in the same year. And you know what's funny? This routine, and again, remember, I had just met Gordon. So I was just learning who he was and so this was in Dallas, and it was our first performance together ever, was this routine. And And when we got off stage, people were like, "Did you choreograph that?" And I'm like, "No. I mean, he had this one. I did my little 5, 6, 7 to it." And they all thought I choreographed. They was like, "This is so not like Gordon dancing." And I was like, well, "What is he like?" Like, I still hadn't realized like that he had all these other pieces that were like nothing like this little 5, 6, 7 here.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was so weird for people to see him so like tamed and like doing a hand and a regular Susie Q, you know. They were like, "Oh, Julissa done changed you, bro." Like,
I love it.
which is, and again, this was in the same weekend. We did this, and the next night we did Jump Off. So it was like polar opposites.
I love that, though. You're showcasing yourselves as more than, one-dimensional artists.
Yes.
And authentically more than one-dimensional artists.
Yeah.
Which is just so refreshing, I think, to see.
Yeah. I think that was my favorite part of our partnership, is that there was always a challenge, right? And no two routines were ever really the same.
Mm-hmm.
And then as the years went on, and I was with him for 7 years. I mean, he was basically my second husband at one point.
Oh, there's so many routines. So many routines.
It always felt fresh and new and like challenging and just rewarding to do something completely different than the other one, I'm always like, "Oh, this one's my favorite." And then I'll see a video of an older one, and I was like, "Oh, but I like that one too." Like, I was like, I remember, you start remembering the feeling that you had when you perform these pieces.
I'm very grateful to you guys for whoever did the uploading of the videos that you had at the time, because they're all named, which is awesome.
That's probably cool.
So I'm pulling it up. I'm like, okay, different routine. It's got a different name.
Yeah.
This one I'm about to show is Intense.
Oh,
literally.
This is. Oh, okay. I remember this one. This was like I used to call it the pirate routine, because I felt like, I was on a pirate boat with my costume. This one has a funny story, right?
Funny stories, go.
You see how Gordon's wearing like a button down, and it's tight, right? And you sweat in your armpits, like you're trying to wait backstage, and you're trying to warm up, but you're not trying to sweat. So he put like paper towels under his shirt, right? And he always did that, right? And then right before stage, he would go off and take them off. Well, in this show, I don't know if it's in this one, because this is Orlando Congress. I don't remember if it was in Orlando Congress, but there was something that was coming out his shirt, and I'm like, we talk a lot while we dancing together. We're like,
do you really?
All the time. We have
I love it.
Like, I'm like, I can't wait to have some pizza after this, because you didn't allow me to have pizza. Like, you were like, "Don't have that before we went on stage," and I'm like, "This pizza when I get off the stage," So, but during this, I kept telling him, "There's something coming out of your shirt. This white." He's like, "What?" And it was and he would be like, "Oh man, I forgot my napkin." So like, one of the turns, he's like, throws his paper towel. It was like coming out his shirt as he was dancing, I don't know if it was this show. This is like an Orlando Congress one.
I'm like trying to see if let's see if we can get a close up on this video.
It wasn't. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't think that he's got the white paper towel in there.
Came out. It was so funny. We always had so many moments like that, like straight up on stage.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Anyone who's ever been on my team, even like my linemen, they'll tell you, like, Julissa be talking to us the entire time. Like, Julissa be having full on conversations. I mean, they're not deep conversations. I'm not trying to get philosophical on stage, but I'd be like, move left, move right. Oh, you hit that move. I'm proud of you. Like, I'm just like having, like, when your mom records you and she's talking throughout the whole video. I'm doing that when I'm, like, with them as I'm.
Good job, baby. Crossbody lead. Way to go.
Yeah, let's go. That's good. Yeah, But with Gordon, I would have like funny conversations. We would have funny conversations on stage.
I have to ask, just because it's so far, like the camera, I can't zoom in on it. Mm-hmm. The costume that you're wearing, was that a dance costume made to look like a pirate's dress? Or
no, it was definitely like a pirate's dress, like
Halloween costume?
Oh, yeah. It was definitely a Halloween costume.
I didn't want to call it out. I was like, sure.
Oh, no, girl. We always get some bootlegs. So, like, it was always something like, all right, what we piecing together? What we doing together? Everything was, we never like went to a person to fully make it was never like that, We found what we did. We hand sewed stuff. It was bootleg, but it pieced together, right? Like.
I love it. I'm like watching. I'm like, is she wearing what I think she's wearing? And then this next routine, you're wearing something much simpler.
Yeah. That's also a costume, like a Halloween costume. Like one
Is
of
it
those,
really?
like, what do you call those? Those like got those like
Grecian goddesses?
Greek something, you know, like when they have those Greek parties or whatever.
Oh, yeah. Toga.
Yeah, a togan. That's what it is. It's one of those too.
Tell me about this piece.
Oh, we love this piece. This was in China. We were in China for a week, which was amazing. I never danced so much in my life. Like Chinese people don't ever get tired, girl.
No, they do not.
Whoa. I mean, we were dancing, but it felt great, you know, like,
oh yeah.
I like to be dance tired, you know, I don't like to be other tired.
I love to be dance tired.
I don't like to be life tired, but I love to be dance tired. Like I love when I can't even walk. I've been dancing so much, you know, like it just feels good. So this routine it went into our like modern contemporary backgrounds and lots of free movements. And it's about, you know, it's a really emotional piece, like super emotional. And the first time we did it, it was cool. But like the more we did it, you know, with any piece, the more you did it, you just feel like the extent of what you're trying to go for. And and we love, this is actually one of our better ones. This one was a good one. We had one in New York Congress that we did one time. I don't know why, but we just felt we were so into it that we literally, like, I was crying on stage, and people afterward told me like, you had me in tears. I'm like,
I love performances like that. That's what I feel performing should be about. Like
transporting.
When we move the audience, like that's everything.
Yeah. I mean, it's like it's a moving picture, right? Like you go to the movies to be transported into the story that they're giving you. And when you watch a show, it should move you, it should transport you into whatever it is they're trying to do, you know? Like it's a moving picture. So we love this piece. This is another one that was like super popular. And again, it's barefoot.
That's what I was just about to say. I'm like, and once again, you're not in heels.
Yes, girl. I was living my life.
I love it. I absolutely love it.
We love barefoot.
Talk to me about your creative process with Gordon, right? All of these routines that we've seen so far, they're so different. And you both have such eclectic backgrounds. When you would go into rehearsal, or when you guys would, you know, start working on a new routine, was it idea, then music, then choreo? Was it music, inspiration?
It was always music first.
Okay.
So there would be a song or some songs that we would be thinking about, and we would like kind of vote and say, okay, I'm really feeling this one, blah, blah. And then we would just sit in it. We would sit in listening to the song and music. And then what would happen, because me and Gordon never lived in the same state. That's another thing that people don't realize, you know, like it wasn't easy for us to rehearse. So the fact that we were as clean as we were, even in the show you're watching, is insane, because people don't do that, you know, like they have to rehearse every day, whatever, blah, blah. And we just worked so well. Like I would go to Atlanta and I would be there for 3 days, and we would rehearse literally like 8-10 hours, you know, like we would eat, we would come back to rehearse, we would just do stuff, you know, like we would dance and see what came out, right? And see what the story was. And because Gordon doesn't speak Spanish, he would be like, what does this song say? What does it mean? Let's think about what it's saying. And then, not that we were trying to be literal, but we understand the crowd would be listening to the song as we're dancing it too. So that would always have a connection as well. So we just did a lot of playing around and seeing what fit, and thinking about the pictures that we wanted for the crowd to see, like moving pictures. I mean, I can't, there's not a better phrase for it. We were moving pictures, right? Like we were trying to see what they were going to see every time. We always thought about what the audience perspective is. And I do that all the time. You always think about what the audience is looking at, you know?
One of the things that I love about this routine so much, I have to say, is even watching it muted, you still feel it.
Right? Like, it's just me. I'm like, am I being?
No, like, I was literally like mesmerized watching it. I took myself out of the picture so I could enjoy it. It's a powerful piece
It
in and
is.
of itself, and you execute it so well. And again, I think it goes back to your training,
Mhm.
right? Because you are so confident in your background and your training that you can lose yourself in the piece.
Yes. I
You
want
know?
to. I search to lose myself in the piece.
And I love that. Like, I think that routine is so, especially that video of it, that performance is
Yeah.
just so powerful that,
Yeah.
again, you don't need to listen to it to still be able to appreciate it.
Yeah.
Now, this routine is a solo of you, taking a little detour from the you and Gordon route. And solo work is different, right? You were just talking to me about,
Oh my God.
telling a
It works
story.
so hard.
You talk about telling a story through like your routines with Gordon, but solos are a different animal in terms of choreography and all that. So talk to me about that transition for you.
So this is actually my second solo. Yeah. And this is the one I actually performed the most. More so my first. And so like I never decided that I wanted to do solos. It was always I had a duet, and then the duet didn't pan out. So then it became a solo. Like that's literally this is DC Congress. I can't remember what year. So it was a duet. And then at Tech, I was like, it's about to be a solo. Like it's not working out. Like, or the
Change
person,
your plans.
the person just didn't feel as confident. And like you said, I really put myself in these routines. Like I submerge myself in this piece and I rehearse it. Even when I'm the choreographer, like even knowing that I know what it is, I rehearse it until I feel it in my bones, right? So
yes,
if someone is not doing the exact same thing, then we're not looking like yin and yang.
Oh, for sure.
So this became a solo, like literally that afternoon from this video.
Listen, you a pro. That's what you do. You know what I mean? Although it's a lot easier to take a duo and make it a solo.
Oh, for sure.
Than it would be to take a solo and make it a duo, because then you got to think of flipping shit and making it look like taking out one and just being like, I'll just do this on my own. And I always say the best thing about solos is because you're by yourself, if you mess up, nobody know your choreography.
Right? You're gonna be like,
just tell it, right? Throw in an extra split, a kick, whatever, till you got it,
And truth be told, even my solos were long. Like this one is like 3 minutes and something, right?
Yeah, 2:45.
Yeah, like who was I? I had the stamina of like.
I saw the time on that video. I was like, she did a 3-minute solo. This girl crazy.
It was insane. And I still have solos, and it's crazy because now that I've done a competition, right, and it's like 1 minute something, I'm like, man, it's all over. Like I feel like I was just getting started. Like I'm not used to short pieces, And so many people are like, how do you do it for so long? And I'm like, well, I listen to the song, and when I fall in love with the song, I have really hard trouble going from 5 minutes of awesome to 1 minute and a half of like mediocre. Like when I edit music, I need it to feel complete, even if I'm editing it. So if it doesn't feel complete, I'm gonna add more music.
I hear you. Makes total sense. You've had the lucky pleasure of dancing with a lot of incredible people, including this guy right here.
Yes.
Talk to me about working with Lyric, another long distance partnership.
I'm still getting used to Lyric because I met him when he was still Andy. But funny enough, I met Andy and we have the same last name, so he's always calling me Prima and I'm always calling him Primo. But I met him at the first Orlando Congress in 2007, and I was like in registration because I organized it. I was helping organize that Congress that first year. And he had to teach a workshop, and his partner at the time, but he said her flight was delayed. So they were like, he needs someone to help him do the partnering. So they came and got me. And it was like, oh, hi, I'm Andy Cruz. I'm like, I'm Julissa Cruz. So then we just hit it off. So whenever he's in town, this is like one of the times that he came to Virginia. We did like a little class, and then we performed at TSR.
Yep.
And this is one of his routines that he choreographed with Kimberly, and they did on Soneros, his team from Chicago. So yeah, I've done a lot of little. I'm always down for a collab. Now, don't everybody call me at once, but I love. I got other things to do right now, but before I was like, everybody would be like, "Oh, you want to learn this routine?" I'm like, "Heck yeah!" Like I always wanted to. Like, don't tell me to learn something, because I will send you a video of the whole routine next week. Like that's just how it was.
So everybody contact Julissa.
Yeah, not
send her your request. Send her a song. If she likes it, you might get picked.
Yeah,
you should make it a contest.
But that was what happened with Liz. With that first routine I learned, she was like, "Oh," I'm like, "Oh yeah, I love that routine." She's like, "You think you would want to learn it?" Blah, blah. I was like, "Yeah." And she sent me I don't even know if she sent me a breakdown. Girl, I learned it straight off your performance video. And I sent her a video, like a rough draft of me doing it in my living room. And she was like, "Oh, hell no, you learned it."
We'll get to that.
If I say yes, yeah, I'm like, if I say yes, I'm going to learn it. I'm going to learn it. Like, I commit to my word.
I want to talk to you. You mentioned Liz, and I want to talk to you about this performance that you guys did. It was hard to find one with really good quality lighting.
Oh, yeah. Our lighting was crazy.
But this was at your event.
Yes.
Correct? This was at Pura Vintage.
What year was this, you know?
2014.
15? What
2015.
Year? 15.
And this is a Michael Jackson remix, right?
Yes.
Can you talk about this routine for a little bit? Because I loved it. I wish you guys had performed it more.
Yeah. Well, actually, you know, I moved to Florida in 2014. I had my third kid. So when we came for this event in 2015, I had to, you know, we had to rehearse like there. We always rehearsed there at the places that we were going to perform. Mm-hmm. But when I lived in Virginia at the time we were making this up, again, it was just like a whim. It was like, you know how you meet people and you're like, "I respect what you do." And you're like, "I respect what you do too." I was like, "All right, let's respect each other and put it on stage." It's like one of those things, like a soul sister moment when I met Liz, like kindred spirits. And it's like, you want to dance with the people you love, right? Like, so that was this experience with me with Liz. It was learning because Liz was very meticulous and intentional about where she put her arms and where she put her things, where I was more free movement, you know? Mm-hmm. So it was really about meshing those things together, being more in this like competition mentality where everything has a placement, and me where I'm like scribbling outside the lines, like my life depends on it, you know? trying to mold that into something was good. I mean, I like to believe I'm easy to work with. Liz is super easy to work with.
You are.
Well, it was just, it's about bouncing ideas and bouncing just energies, you know? That's why I like all the collabs I've done, because it really is, especially the ones that we piece together. Like, for instance, when I collabed with Andy, he had that routine already. When I collabed with Troy, it's something I'm learning. But when I did collabs that we put it together, like me and Liz have that routine. Then I have one with Ana Masapote that we put together. And that building process of piecing something together and trying to submerge our two styles together is really what I love. And now with Melanie Castillo, same thing. So we're building these two things together. Is this when it was just us two?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
This is the routine you were talking about. And Liz actually told us that you were an inspiration for the choreography.
Really?
So asking you to join us on stage was only a natural choice for us when we needed to come down there. And unfortunately, you know, she wasn't able to perform with us that night because I had to take her back home because, you know, she had a loss in her family.
Yeah.
So you and I, we
had that same day, remember? Mm-hmm. It was like she left that morning and we were like, oh, we drove.
So we were double booked that weekend, Art of Moshua. We were there Friday, and Saturday we had a gig in Baltimore, and then we had to drive back. And I took my car to the Baltimore event. And when we were there, Liz got a call and we
Yeah.
realized what was going on. So we got in the car and I drove her back to Philly and turned right around and drove back to DC so that I could teach in the morning. And then you and I performed that night and we dedicated this performance to her.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Like we found out that day and we were at tech, like, okay, we got to fill this hole. We got to, you know, like this was such a fun piece. I really enjoyed doing this routine.
I loved getting to share the stage with you. I'll tell you this now. I don't think I told you this then, but I was shitting bricks when I realized it was just going to be me and you. Because I was
like, let's go.
I was like, everybody is about to see that I've been faking it all this time. Like, they're going to be like, this girl don't know shit. I had to like dig deep for the confidence to go out there with you. And I remember there was a part where we turned around and the rumba section really comes in. Mm-hmm. And I saw you out the corner of my eye and you were going in. I was like, I'm not moving enough.
You had a moment, girl.
I was like, oh shit, I need to step up my game right now. I will not be the weak link up here.
But you know, that's when you say that, because I think it's so crucial for people to surround themselves with people that are going to like push them, right? Like,
yes,
you have to have that, right? And even if, so like the person doesn't have to be the world's best dancer in order to push you though. So I don't want people to think like, oh, you have to be with the best of the best in order to be pushed. Because that's a lie in and of itself. Yeah. Some people who are like the best of the best have no, they don't have that natural ability to make people work hard. Just because they work hard, that doesn't mean they can
instill that in somebody else.
Correct. So it takes a very special person to instill that in others. But there are those people that just have the energy of saying, I'm going to go ham 1000%. And if you're not there, you're going to get left behind. And then those people have to make the decision, okay, I'm going to show up. I'm going to show up and I'm going to be part of this person and dance next to the person. And then it makes the experience and the partnership and the routine so much more better, right? Because you're connecting with the people you have on stage, right? So there's that connection. And then there's the connection with the audience. But if you lose the connection on stage with the people that you have, like if you're not trying to constantly level up to the people that are next to you, then you're going to lose the connection that you have with the audience.
So talking about connections and your favorite people, this was another fun collaboration that you did with your boys.
Yes. They were so cool to work with.
Such a fun, different piece. Talk about this one.
I loved wearing that dress too. And those are not even salsa heels. You know, those are like my Todd's leather boots. Those are my favorite boots. I was living my whole life. This was at Pura Vintage. And yeah, we learned this piece and I was like, let's do it. And you know, they hadn't performed in a few years because they had their own thing when I first met them. It was just them two, like a little duet. The HDs, or I don't know, they had the HDs, but I don't know if they called themselves something when it was just them two. But it's always fun to work with your peers or your friends, right? Because it's a different energy on stage, right? You have all these little moments that have nothing to do with the routine that are making you giggle and laugh and whatever. Yeah. And also, because it's your friends, I feel like you try to get, look, I'm having an only malfunction right there. Something got stuck in my weave got stuck in my shirt. I was like, oh no. But it just feels more organic, right? When you're dancing with people, it's not like, oh, we have to get this perfectly right. It's just, we have to have a good time. This is going to be a good time. It's going to look cute. It's going to be a good time because when you show your good time, people have a good time watching you, you know? So I think that's what this was about.
I definitely see it. I mean, there are performances that you watch that are executed perfectly, right? There's no mistakes, but it might not be as memorable as a routine that you see where there are some mistakes, but the energy and the connection between the partners, like you don't even care about the mistakes. You're like, that shit was fire.
Right?
And just because of what you feel from that connection. And I think that's such an important aspect of performing that I think so many people are missing these days.
Yeah.
Because they're just trying to get ahead as opposed to connecting with each other and having those moments. Like you can just tell you're having fun with your friends.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
because you're enjoying it, we're enjoying watching you.
Yeah.
You know, and that's all there is to that, essentially. You did talk about your team. There
Yeah.
were so many videos that I could have pulled up, but I wanted really to
Oh, I
focus
love
more
this
just
one.
on you. But talk to me about being a director.
Oh, it's been rough, girl.
Mhm.
It is no easy thing to direct and lead adults. I will say that because, once you're an adult, people have their own lives. They have their own things going on. They have their own insecurities that have nothing to do with you. They have, there's all these other different conversations that happen that don't actually happen, in
Yeah.
adulthood that you have to understand. You have to understand, but then you also have to respect the space of the dance floor, right? Like, okay, we're coming here. You signed up. You're committed to do something. I'm committed to you to help you achieve to do this something, but you need to show up and commit and actually be a part of it. And that sometimes gets lost from season to season, like sometimes, because life changes for many people. So when you have to start from scratch all the time and, get new people. And I actually learned that early on when I was with Salsa Heat, because it felt like every year there was someone leaving and we had to get a new person. Then we had to teach them from scratch. And then it's like, it's a constant.
Mhm.
And then it happened again in Richmond. It's just life. People leave, they go to college, they get married, they have babies, they get a new job. It's just commitments change, and it's hard to be a director in those kind of circumstances only because the commitment never changes for you. So you're always the last man standing no matter what. And that can be lonely, it can get lonely at times because you're the only one that like, look at me having the best old time of my life.
I love it. You're always having the best time of your life on stage.
I'm like, I'm at the house. I ain't got no kids. I got my lashes. It's always a good time. But yeah, so a lot of people don't understand the complexities of being a director and how it can strain even your commitment to yourself in the craft, right? Because you have to be so committed to other people's and all their changes and stuff. But it is rewarding, right? When you see people reach their aha moment, and then you have shows like this where we all having a great time and we're all at such a high level because we've been together for long and we have these great relationships. So there's moments like that, and then there's the moments when like everyone leaves and you're like, okay, I gotta search for more people, and do I want to do it again? And like,
Yeah, for
so
sure.
I don't think people understand that while members change, the director usually never changes, and that's my little Memo.
Mm-hmm.
I love dancing with Melanie. Melanie's like the little sister I wish I had growing up.
Aw.
Because
She's
I was
actually going to be my guest next week.
Yes, I love her. So yeah, so I'm the youngest of 4, but the closest sibling to me is like 6 years. Okay. So I always felt like kind of like an only child, right? And then I spent most of my childhood in the studio with people I'm not related to. So it was very like. So when I met Melanie, I saw so much of myself, and I'm not that much older than her. I'm probably about 6, maybe. But I've always been a very old soul. And, I started directing when I was 19, 20. So I started really, my responsibilities in the dance world started very young. So when I met Melanie, I saw a lot of myself in her, like the previous stuff, before all the responsibilities. So I just love being around her. And the way she sees movement and music and the authenticity of like straight mambo, something I've never had all the time, like I said, I'm so much of a free movement, and I'll hit a mambo, like a straight mambo, but she like literally has a love and an admiration, which makes me have a huge admiration for everything and our history and things like that. And it's just cool to work. It's cool to work with other people, right? I'm a super people person, and I love communicating with different people, and it's just always so fun, like finding things. And I'm always joking with her because she'd be doing her little 5, 6, 7, like some old holla days, and I'm like, girl, let's do a kick and let's spin, and she's like, calm down. Let's hit this basic first. And I'm like, okay. But when are we gonna do this shimmy at full speed? Like I'm always ready to get my like teenage dream life,
I love it. I
But yeah,
love it.
it's
Do
fun.
you feel like there's a difficulty finding the balance between, like, as a director, you're, the mom of the company versus an actual mom at home with the 3 kids and
Yeah,
the husband, right? Like, how do you find that balance?
it's a tightrope. It
Okay.
really is like walking on a tightrope. It's a constant search for balance on a daily basis, right? Because no 2 days are ever the same. As
Yeah.
far as like you can plan days and you can have your little Google calendar and give you the alerts of where you have to be and stuff. But like I said, just like raising kids, every child, I have 3 kids, all 3 of them are completely 100% different. Me and my husband are different. We're different people. We like different things. So it's a lot of communication and compromising and knowing and thinking about, okay, the love I have for this person is bigger than this, like what we don't agree on, right? So how am I shifting? And it's actually the same thing in my directing. The only difference is that obviously I'm not responsible for those people's life choices, right?
Right.
Like I'm just responsible for what they put on stage. But because I am a mom, I feel like I always care about their life outside of that.
Of course.
It's a huge balance to try and be like, okay, I need to work on there. I also, as I've grown older and especially in motherhood, I look at people and I tend to look at who their inner child is, right? And what that inner child needs, because sometimes what we're missing as adults, whether it be confidence, whether it be some sort of insecurity, or whether like, I get sometimes a lot of students that'll be like, oh, I just don't get it because I'm just awkward. And but no, you're not. Like you just haven't had the practice, like, and awkwardness is okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
That could be your stint, you know what I mean? Like that could be your click, So it's just about finding, I feel like I'm more observant now because of my mother. So I'm observing all these little nuances that maybe they're not seeing in their dancing and the way they showcase themselves or the way they hold back from showcasing themselves. And so I've come to try and speak to that part of themselves and to instill more of a confidence, because at the end of the day, no one's going to stay with me forever, right? So my main goal as a director is always to kind of get them the tools that they need to be their best self, not to look like me. They don't have to look like me. They just need to look like their best version. Like they have to. I want to ensure that they are confident in how they move. And that they know all the tools, that when they go to somewhere else, they don't feel like, oh, well, this didn't teach me any of this. That's never going to happen.
Yeah, they need to be prepared.
I'm going to teach you too much. You're going to be like, this girl was talking for hours. She wouldn't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm going to put so much information in you that you're never going to be able to say that. Now, there's different styles that maybe I can't teach you, but I'm going to give you so much background information and on your body, on recognizing your body, because I want people to leave me thinking, okay, this is who I am as a dancer, and this is who I want to be, and know who that person is.
I love that.
Oh. So I try to do that now more than just trying to make everyone, look like me or replicas or whatever. And I feel like that's become a little more fulfilling. But
yeah,
you have to be careful, right? Because the more you pour out of you, no one's pouring into you. So it's like I'm constantly like watering the garden, and then I'm like, by the time the canister comes to me, it's like dry.
It's like, I need help.
Yeah, and as a mother, your canister is always dry, right? Because there's nothing that the child, the 5-year-old can't give you much. Like they can give you a bunch of loves and kisses, and that's amazing. But
your kids are adorable.
Thank you.
So cute. I can't take it.
Yeah, so you have to be careful in that sense too. So I've learned that that I have to make sure that I pour back into myself, especially as a director, right? Because like I said, adults have lives. You can't take it personal. You can't, you know, there's a lack of loyalty, I will say, in dance environments because dance is ever changing, right? And life is ever changing.
Yes.
So there's no way that I can say, I'm going to join this team and I'm going to be with y'all for like 10 years. Now,
it happens.
There are some teams that are like that. There are some teams, but those are the outliers of the 20 million teams that there are in the world.
True.
And in every city, there's like, when I moved to the DMV, there was like 22 different teams.
Really?
Yes, from franchises to individual teams, from bachata to any type of partnering dances.
Wow.
It was a lot.
That's a lot of teams for one city.
Well, it's the DMV. It's like
okay. You said DMV. Sorry. So you 3 cities, 3 areas.
3 areas. But you know, everybody goes to those all 3. You know, like criteria. But it's very difficult to expect people to stay with you forever. You know, and as a director and a leader, you have this vision, right? That you're like, I'm going to train these people up. They're going to stay with me forever, and that's just not realistic, right? It's just not something that happens. So it's you have to make sure that as a director that you are constantly watering yourself and that you're constantly being realistic of what you want your company to be about, what you want. At the end of the day, what do you want to be remembered for? What do you want to instill in people when they remember what you did for them, you know? So it shouldn't just be about the 5, 6, 7, basically. So that's more what I'm gearing towards as I age or whatever. It's just finding.
We're not aging.
Yeah, I mean, I still look young. If you see the original flyer that you had, that picture is like from 2009.
Is it really?
2008, maybe.
Yeah, I'll be honest. When I was going through your pictures, trying to pull one up first, like I really couldn't tell what was what because
I'm pretty sure I'm a vampire.
Everything.
I'm almost sure I'm a vampire because. And I'm going to knock on wood that never changes, you know?
Yeah, no, you look fantastic. You don't look like you've changed whatsoever. So when I sent you that, you were like, that picture's old. I was like, it looks like from yesterday. I don't know what you're talking about, but God bless you. I'm going to need to know your skin routine.
Girl,
what are you using? What are you using for that glow?
I use jabón y agua. But,
do you think, I mean, I don't know how it was for you, but did you ever feel any, I don't know if pushback is the right word, but did you ever feel like maybe you were being questioned or something, being a woman trying to run the business? Or do you think because you started young, maybe you had that advantage?
No, it doesn't matter.
It don't matter.
Really doesn't matter. You're always going to be questioned because you're a woman. First of all, we teach partner dancing. And I'm a woman. So, you know, the idea is that I'm the follow, not the lead. But I am the CEO and sole owner of my company, which makes me the lead of that. Yeah. And I teach partnering. And I teach the lead. And I lead. Granted, it's been a while, so I understand that concept. But there's always like, I wouldn't call it pushback, but there's always this second guessing of how dope you are because you're only a woman, right? Like how dope are you really? Like how much can you really do? Like in my routines that I do partnering with, people always ask me, did you do that choreography? Yes, that would be correct.
It's like, it's my team. Of course I did the choreography.
Yes, that would be correct. I did all the partnering. Yes, and I did the formations. Yes, and I did and the male part. Yeah, that is me. Like,
I know.
So there's always, it's not a pushback, but there's always a doubt, right? You always feel the doubt come in. And I'm sure many women in my field feel that too. There's always this doubt.
Oh, absolutely. Every woman that I've had on this show, I think almost every single one has felt some sort of pushback or some sort of inequality or, you know, finding out that their partner was getting paid more than them or like it's amazing how many stories I've heard, how many of them are similar, right? That like all of us have gone through. And it's for me, I find it almost hilarious. Like when you look at studios, majority of the students are women, right? When you think about dance, you think about women dancing And yet somehow it is easier for the men in our easier might be the wrong word, but I
It's
feel like
easier.
the women
It's
in the
totally easier.
yeah,
Totally easier. Bro, there could be a guy who's literally like a sexual predator, but because he's a guy teaching the salsa class, they'll still show up. People will still show up for him.
mm-hmm.
But if I, being a woman, call out that guy,
Ain't nobody coming to your class.
I'm the bad guy
Mm-hmm.
because I'm a woman saying it. I'd have to be a man calling out that man. But because
And they
I'm
don't do it enough.
that man, he's still making his coin, no matter how much of a jerk he is. But if I'm a jerk in my classes, oh, there goes my pocket. Not that my pockets are full anyways, because, you know, it's dance. Let's be realistic. Yeah. But, you know, it is, I feel like I would love for that to change. I would love for it to change. But the reality is that it's like that. So there has to be, we need to assert ourselves as women, as studio owners, as leaders, as directors. You just have to assert yourself. Don't take less. Don't do less. Don't be less. You know what I mean? Like, and that last one is so important because sometimes when we feel that doubt, we become less.
Yes.
No, stop. Don't, you know, don't dim your light for the sake of others because they ain't got sunglasses on. That's not your priority. You know what I mean? Like you have to be more. You be more, you do you, you know. The people who will respect you will always respect you. The people who don't, there's, like I said, there's like 28 other teams in your city. You get energy anyways. Sure. But I will say, that's funny you talk about like everybody else on your show always talks about that. But I will say that Gordon, I never experienced that. Like he was a really good partner. He's super honest, which people always see Gordon as like, like, you know, he's a hardball, you know, like he's controversial or, you know, he's this, he's that. People always have their opinions about him. He's angry or whatever. But let me tell you, I've never met a more honest and direct person. I'm going to tell you right now. From the day I met him, and remember, I didn't know who he was when he called me to be his partner. I didn't really know him. And I didn't know what level he was on. I didn't know his history, how much he danced. I didn't know he was on the top of his game or our game at that point. I didn't know he had his own event. I was just like, cool, I'm gonna dance with somebody. Like that was my mindset. Yeah. So that would have been the perfect time for him to take advantage of someone who was as naive as me and say, you know, this is what you're getting. You're getting $100 or whatever. He was never like that. He was like, all right, this is how we're gonna do it. This is how the game works. This is what you're gonna do. He was very honest with me. I was 2007. How old was I? I don't know, 21, 22. Mm-hmm. So he could have taken my inexperience and ran with it, but he didn't. He didn't, which is, I love that. You can't say that a lot for these people that everybody loves, right? These men that everybody love. You can't say that for them. Now, not everybody loves Gordon, right? He's a cup of tea, but you can't ever say that he's dishonest. You can't ever say that he's not the same person today as he is tomorrow. And I appreciate that about him because he taught me to really value what I do. I value what I do. And because of him, I'm also like, okay, I don't want to do it. And I say, like, it's not that important, you know, like if I don't want to do something, if I don't feel value in doing something, or I don't like the energy of this thing, then I'm not going to do it. And that's okay. You have to. That's okay. You have to do things that set your soul on fire, right? And if it's not, then it doesn't matter how much you get paid. Like, and I think a lot of the old school people feel that way. Like and Gordon reminds me of that. And I say this to say is that there are very few people who are not easily bought. I am not easily bought. Gordon is not easily bought. A lot of the people that were around and like, that were dancing big time in like 2003, 2004, they are not easily bought. Even to this day, they're not easily bought. There are just some people that are not easily bought. And that says a lot about their character. Whether they're liked or not is a different story because everybody has their own cup of tea. But if you're honest and you're true to your art, then that's all that matters. You know what I mean? And I appreciate Gordon that, because I never had that type of complaint about my partner. I can seriously say that I never have. I'm grateful that I never have, because I hear the same stories you do, girl, and it's horrifying. Horrifying.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Gordon, for that, for taking care of Julissa in the beginning. We appreciate you for that. I have a question. It's the last one I always ask everybody before we wrap up. But I feel like you've given so much of this advice and what you said. I almost
I
feel
talk
like
so much. I have to apologize, because I say this all the time. I get wordy. I'm sorry.
All good.
My conversations are with my husband and my 3 kids. So I'm gonna take this opportunity to say my piece.
This is why I wanted you on the show. This is why I wanted you on. But yeah, so the final question that I always ask all the women on my show: if there was one piece of advice that you could give to women who are trying to make it in this industry, what would that piece of advice be?
If I was speaking directly to women in the industry, I would say to look straight. Ooh. We get really sidetracked with our peripheral visions, and they work. They're 20/20. But as a woman, you got to look straight. You got to look straight ahead, because if you look to the right and your left, there's always another woman on the same track as you. You can't be worried about that. It's like a race. It's a race to the finish, but it's your personal race, right? A lot of people think I'm in competition with everyone else. You're not. You're in competition with yourself from yesterday, or yourself from last year, or yourself from 2 years ago. And the best thing you can do for yourself is to keep looking straight. That's my only advice. Just keep walking forward. Do training, obviously, finding what you love, right? About your moving, and just keep moving forward, man. Don't worry about what anybody else is doing or not doing, or should you be doing it or should you not be doing it. No. Think about what speaks to you. And also, I will say, surround yourself with people who are honest, right?
Yes.
Who have a good character, who are of sound mind and character, because that's gonna take you far, right? That energy is super important. But straightforward, no peripheral when you're trying to do something,
Mm-hmm. I love it. That's such great advice. I love it. You were like, look straight. I went, ooh.
Well, yes. It's, in life, I feel like we all have that tendency. I have that tendency, right? You're oh my God, there's so much content and I can't keep up, and
Mm-hmm.
But that's a setup, girl. I mean, when you drive and if you're looking in your rear view mirror, you're not looking straight, you're gonna hit somebody, right? So
very true.
Philosophy on life.
Life for dance, it works for everything.
Yes.
Well, thank you, Mama, so much for being on the show. I have your information scrolling on the bottom.
Yes.
Latin Vintage website, latinvintage.com for your company. Julissa Cruz on IG, right? And Facebook. Is there anything coming up?
It's like J Boogie.
J Boogie, I'm sorry. There it is. J Boogie on Instagram and at Julissa Cruz on Facebook. Yeah, J Boogie.
That's my B-girl name, J Boogie.
I love it. Do you have anything coming up? Auditions, something that you want?
I do have auditions coming in July for my Shine team, my ladies team, which will be posting up soon. And then I have people keep asking me about what my classes are, and I'm gonna do them. I promise, guys. But summer and there's no pandemic. I'm like, I'm not doing a class that everyone's gonna be like, oh, I can't make it today. I gotta go to this. I gotta go to this routine.
I know.
I'm letting y'all enjoy your
hard in the summer.
And I'll catch y'all in the fall when everything's boring again. And so we'll have my intensives will come up in the fall, like late August or September, and then that'll be it. I am working on a project actually, which I'll hopefully be able to post soon. But it's another labor of love. So just keep a lookout. Is this
an exclusive tidbit that we're getting right now? Am I getting an
exclusive tidbit of information? It's something that I tried to do before the pandemic started, and then the pandemic came, and then I had to do a lot of family stuff with my parents, and my parents are older and stuff, so I had to put it aside to do other responsibilities. But I'm really trying to focus on finishing it up this year and sharing it with everyone. So be on the lookout.
I'm excited. Everybody stay tuned to Julissa's page and see what she's talking about. I'm excited. All right. Well, again, thank you so much for giving me your time, for sharing your life, your love and of dance and everything with us. It was such a pleasure to talk to you. I hope I'm going to see you soon.
Yes, hopefully.
You going to Summit?
Oh no, I'm not going to Summit, girl.
All right. Well, if I make a trip down to DC anytime soon, I will call you.
Yes, please do.
Thank you. Love you. And everyone join us next week where my guest will be Melanie Castillo. Hey. I love that we ended with her performance because it was like such a great segue. It was perfect.
You planned
it. I did. I planned it perfectly. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Once again, I'm your host, Sharonne Vinokurov, and this has been another episode of Women of Dance. Thank you so much for tuning in. Bye-bye.